Good afternoon. Here is part 2 of Polar the Titanic Bear. Early in April, we sailed back to America on a ship called the Adriatic. After we arrived in New York, we went to Master's new home in Tuxedo Park, which was surrounded by trees and overlooked a little lake. When the weather turned hot and sticky, we went to the family's summer house near Bar Harbor, Maine. I enjoyed splashing in the ocean with Master or sitting on the rocks while he built forts and castles. Once he forgot about me and the tide came in and almost carried me out to sea, but luckily Master rescued me just in time. When winter came, we returned to Tuxedo Park. Master and I tumbled about in the snow and made snowmen. Best of all, he gave me rides on his sled, running as fast as he could across the ice-covered lake while the cold wind whistled in my ears. At Christmas I had my own tree and new toys to play with. I enjoyed a delicious turkey dinner served on a small table that Master made for me. In the new year we sailed away to some hot sunny places. We went to Panama, where a great canal was being built right through the country so that ships could sail from one side to the other. One of the engineers invited Master, Muddy Boons, and me to ride out to see it in his private car. Bright flocks of parrots flew from the trees as we roared down the jungle roads. Bermuda was our last stop. Master took me to a beautiful beach where we spent many a long afternoon. He would make a sort of throne out of sand for me to sit on and say, "Now, Polar, don't you run away, but just stay quiet while I work." So I sat there watching him play and sniffing his salt air. The next winter we once more set sail on the Caronia, this time for Algiers in northern Africa. The weather was sunny, so we spent our day on deck romping about with the other children. The captain and Master were great friends, and we were often invited to his room for a cup of tea, as Master called his hot water and sugar. In Algiers we saw Arabs dressed in long flowing robes. We stayed in a big hotel with a garden, where I would sit on a bench with Muddy Boons while Master played ball. In February we celebrated George Washington's birthday. Master invited a few friends. We decorated the table with American flags, and Master dressed in red, white and blue. After our tea party we all fished presents from a big bag. From Algiers we set sail for the south coast of France. At Monte Carlo we rode to our hotel on the hill in a funny narrow railway. Master told me it was a funicular railway and that it was pulled along by a cable. Then we went to Cannes, where we stayed for nearly a month. I sat in the hotel garden every morning while Master had an hour's spelling lesson with Muddy Boons. One day we heard a loud buzzing noise. "An aeroplane!" Master shouted, throwing down his books. "Goodness me!" Muddy Boons cried, jumping to her feet. We all craned our necks up to the sky and watched as the aeroplane circled overhead. I could see the pilot sitting in the cockpit with his goggles on, and he waved at us before heading out over the sea. We took the night train to Paris. Strolling in the Tuileries Gardens, we saw boys sailing their boats in the fountains and watched hot air balloons rising toward the sky. Master took me part way up the Eiffel Tower one day and told me it was 984 feet high. He was telling me the height and length of things. I was sorry when it was time to go back to America, for I loved Paris. But Master was excited because we were to sail to New York on the Titanic, a magnificent new ship. Everyone said she was the biggest ship in the world. We were going to be on her very first voyage. The Titanic had left England the day before, and her first stop was at Cherbourg, France. We took a train to Cherbourg, and that evening went out to the huge ship on a little tugboat. As we stepped on board, the ship's doctor, who had known all of us on the Adriatic, kissed Master and said, "I still see you still have Polar with you, little man." We had fairly smooth weather those first few days, and spent most of our time on deck, where Master would spin his whip top or play ball. But we also loved exploring the great ship. There was a giant staircase with a big glass dome over it. Master sent me flying down the banister one morning. In the ship's gymnasium we saw bicycles and rowing machines and even a mechanical camel for the passengers to ride on. There was a lovely sun parlour on the upper deck where we spent our afternoons, and Master allowed a little girlfriend of his to play with me. We ate in the first-class dining saloon. The tables were covered with stiffly starched white tablecloths and polished silver, and the ship's band played for us every night. At our stateroom was even bigger than Master's bedroom at home. One day Master's mother and Muddy Boons went down to the lower decks and had a Turkish bath. They didn't like this hot steam bath one bit, although they did enjoy a cooling dip in the ship's swimming pool afterwards. It was our 5th night at sea. I had been in bed a few hours when I suddenly opened my eyes. The lights had been turned on. Muddy Boons was dressing Master in a great hurry. Tune in tomorrow to find out what happens.